YouTube, we are back. Week 12 recap. Tulane at number 25 Tulsa. This game went literally exactly how I thought it was going to play out. Like, if you go back to the prediction video, I expected Tulsa to be down at some point in this game. I expected them to come back. They did the things they really couldn't do, like I said, to clean up, Zach Smith, the interceptions and whatnot. But let's get into it. Tulsa, they did go down 14-0. Not for once did I think Tulane was going to win this game that easily. The first half was definitely an offensive struggle. Punts, missed field goals. Tulsa threw an interception at the end of the half, like I said. Tulsa also started the second half with a fumble, so it was really looking like Tulane got the upper hand, but as I said, Tulane could not afford to get comfortable with any kind of lead, especially a 14-0 lead. It's only 2 scores. And Tulsa finally found something on offense, eventually with backup quarterback Davis Brin, which wasn't until the fourth quarter with about, I think, 8 minutes, if that. They did get in the end zone. Tulane didn't respond to that. They couldn't respond. They ended up punting. I believe it was a punt. I don't think it was a turnover. Tulsa scored again to tie the game up at 14 apiece. Tulane responded to regain the lead, but a perfectly drawn up drive, like literally perfect from Tulsa, tied the game 21-21 on a last second Hail Mary from about, I think, 30 to 35 yard line about. Davis Brin found Juan Carlos Santana at the end, in overtime, double overtime I might add. The Golden Hurricanes had a pick six that won them the game, and they survived again. They found a way again to win. Tulane running back Stephon Hutterson had 24 carries for 98 yards and a touchdown. I said that was important, that Tulane established some run game and really chew some clock so Tulsa wouldn't have a chance to come back, but obviously wasn't enough. Tulsa backup quarterback Davis Brin went 18 for 28, 266 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Tulsa running back Corey Taylor II had 19 carries and 132 yards. Tulsa wide receiver Juan Carlos Santana had 8 receptions, 138 yards, and 1 touchdown, which includes that Hail Mary touchdown. And Tulsa linebacker Zaven Collins, 15 total tackles, game-winning pick 6, and this is not the only game he's impacted for Tulsa. Tulsa gets the win in overtime, 30-24. The next game was UMass at Florida Atlantic. UMass's defense absolutely showed up in this game. They played very, very hard and very physical. I actually felt bad for them because their offense, the same can't be said for their offense. They couldn't do anything or get any kind of momentum on offense. I thought UMass's offense might take some momentum when they had that blocked punt that ended in a safety for Florida Atlantic, but unfortunately that safety was the only points they were able to come up with. UMass's offense, they only totaled 142 yards. They had 2 turns. They gave the ball over 2 times. UMass defenders Cole McCubry and Jake Pacheco, they combined for 19 tackles, 2 sacks, and 4.5 tackles for loss. Florida Atlantic quarterback Javion Posey went 13 for 27, 203 yards. He also had 19 carries for 90 yards and a touchdown, and Florida Atlantic wins 24-2. Next game is New Mexico at Air Force. This game was all Air Force. Air Force is actually, I'm going to go ahead and say, they're very lucky that New Mexico was sloppy for the first and second half and not just one half, because Air Force did not look good in the second half. They looked bad in the second half. So they slip away with one here, but I say slip away, but they shut them out. But what I'm saying is they avoided what could have been a loss here, in my opinion. They had 7 total drives in the second half. 5 of them ended in a punt, a fumble, another fumble, and turnover on downs before they were able to score again. in the fourth quarter. But yeah, that they're lucky they held New Mexico to 0 points, because a second half like that against probably any other team probably results in Air Force losing the game. They ran the ball effectively. They rushed for 356 yards. Air Force running back Brad Roberts had 28 carries for 177 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think, like I said, New Mexico could have changed the course of the game, especially if they didn't start the game with, 2 punts and a fumble. Unfortunately, they did. Air Force played well enough in the first half and a little bit in the second half to walk away with a 28-0 win. Next game is Appalachian State at number 15 Coastal Carolina. The turnovers killed Appalachian State in this game. They had 3 of them. With 6 minutes and 59 seconds in the fourth quarter, Appalachian State threw an interception when they were up 23-21. Coastal Carolina countered, and they scored a touchdown off of that turnover. Next possession, Appalachian State, they come out, they throw a pick six, and next thing you know, they're already down by 11 now. And that was pretty much the game. It was the game, as a matter of fact. Appalachian State running back Cameron Peoples had 27 carries for 178 yards and 1 touchdown. And of course, my player to watch was Grayson McCall, who went 12 for 21, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 14 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown. Coastal Carolina wide receiver Isaiah Legally had 3 receptions for 118 yards and a touchdown, including a 75-yard catch. And Coastal Carolina defensive tackle CJ Brewer also was very disruptive to Appalachian State's offense, who had 14 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and a quarterback hurry. And Coastal Carolina gets the win 34-23, and they improved to 8-0 on the year. Next game was East Carolina at Temple. I just knew Temple's offense was very suspect. They didn't play Anthony Russo. I don't know if he's hurt or they just didn't play him. I don't know what the case is. Both teams stunk on third down. Temple was definitely worse. They went 3 for 17 on third down. That won't do you very well in games. Temple did have more time possession, but turnovers, penalties, and whatnot, kind of canceled that out. They had a -1 turnover differential, and they had 10 penalties. So, too many mistakes. East Carolina really won this game running the ball. They had 40 carries for 265 yards, a 6.6 average, and a touchdown. And East Carolina wins fairly easily, 28-3. Next game is Georgia Southern at Army, and boy was this game wild and not good for my health. But Army really started this game really bad. Honestly, I was sitting back there and I was ready for a blowout. They had 3 fumbles in the first half. I mean, they just looked miserable. They had the guy, Army's quarterback, who was a first-time starter, by the way, their 5th starting quarterback this season, I might add. He was running with the ball. He was getting ready to pitch. He got swatted out of his hands. Then there was a bad exchange where, to me, it looked like the fullback ran a little bit too far and not close enough to the quarterback's hip to get a clean handoff. Then the next one was right at almost a half, when Army was looking to cut the lead 21-14. Their quarterback got tangled up and he fumbled, and Georgia Southern was up 21-7 at the half. In that half, Georgia Southern really got spotted at 14 points really quickly off of turnovers. Play action game that I was worried about. You saw it twice actually in this game. But second half, Army came out fighting, and it looked like a totally new team. Looked like very much a 2018, 2017 Army football team. They scored on their 2 opening drives of the second half. Georgia Southern then took the lead back, but they had their extra point blocked and only put them up by 6, and that is huge. Army then ripped off a very classic Army drive, a definitely feel-good drive if you're an Army fan. An 18-play, 71-yard, 10-minute and 50-second drive to regain the lead, to take the lead for the first time, 28-27. Missed extra point. Big. Georgia Southern couldn't respond. They turned the ball over on downs. A very close first down, a very close stop. Army's Duari Bordeaux was able to give it all he had in that tackle, so he wouldn't give up that, it might have been half a yard. Georgia Southern was able to get the ball back for their offense with one last shot, and he threw an interception. First-time starter, Army linebacker Andre Carter, was able to pick the ball off, and that should have been the game. All Army had to do was take some knees and be done with it. But Army, doesn't like to make it easy on anyone, like their fans or, anyone watching them. Coach Monk admitted it was his fault. They decided to take some kind of knee. Instead of just kneeling the ball or just running plays where you can go forward instead of backwards, they decided to run this stupid kneel down where the guy runs backwards. The offensive line didn't know if they were supposed to hold on purpose or not. It was just a whole mess and ended up resulting in an Army punt. So I think there's 40 seconds left. We're looking at it, and now Georgia Southern has another opportunity to go down the field. What happens? Georgia Southern throws a dart down the middle of the field. They complete it, and they're in field goal range. Great. They go to attempt another pass, and Army's defensive line gets a lot of pressure, and they bring down the quarterback. Clock ticking. Georgia Southern, no timeouts left. They rush to the line to get the spike off. At first, people thought there was 1 second left. They reviewed it. There was not 1 second left in real time. You have to look at real time. You can't look at slow motion, I suppose. I thought there was going to be 1 second left, but the rule is they have to look at it in regular time, and they did not have 1 second, and Army won the game. Whew. That probably took like 5 years off my life, if not more. We'll get into some players that, Shy Words threw the ball effectively. He went 6 for 7, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. But he only had 9 carries for 4 yards and a touchdown. That touchdown coming off of a Army fumble in the first half. Raynard Ellis for Georgia Southern had 18 tackles. So he was all over the place. And first starter Tahir Tyler went 1 for 1 passing for 25 yards and had 35 carries for 121 yards. And 35 carries is good enough for fifth most in Academy history. So that is intense in his first start. And first start, Andre Carter, who had the big blocked extra point, and he had what should have been game-winning interception, and he also had a sack. So not a bad day for the first-time starters. And Army picks up the win, 28-27, a very important win for them. Note, my player to watch wasn't a player. It was Army's coaching staff, and they did a great job of getting back to option football. They did a great job of it. Next game is Florida International at Western Kentucky. And the first half was pretty much how I thought it would go. It was very offensive struggle kind of game until Florida International had a fumble that was returned for a touchdown. And then on the very next drive, they had a pick 6, and just like that, Western Kentucky was up 24-13. Both teams were horrid on big downs. I mean, Florida International went 7 for 21 on third down, 3 for 6 on fourth down. Western Kentucky went 1 for 11 on third down and 0 for 1 on fourth down, so take that as you will. My player to watch was Devontae Price, Florida International running back. He had 24 carries for 100 yards. It wasn't enough. The turnovers killed them in this. And Western Kentucky running back, probably going to get this wrong, Gage Walker, had 17 carries for 127 yards and a touchdown. Final, Western Kentucky 38, Florida International 21. Next game was Rice at North Texas. And North Texas impressed me in this game because they've been, like I said, their defense hasn't been great, and they haven't been able to really put anything together. But Rice got up to a 10-point lead. It was pretty much going kind of how, I shouldn't say how I expected. It was going in a direction where I wasn't surprised. North Texas closed the gap. They closed it 10-7. North Texas had to punt, and the Rice returner fumbled, and North Texas cashed in, and they went up 14-10 at the half. North Texas in a good position at halftime, And North Texas defense showed up, only allowing Rice to score one time in the second half in the fourth quarter. 2 turnovers for Rice definitely hurt them. Rice went 3 for 12 on third down, so they couldn't stay on the field. North Texas ran the ball really well. They had 269 yards rushing. I think that's really what won them the game here. Rice quarterback Mike Collins, he didn't do anything wrong. He played well. He went 23 for 34, 327 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And North Texas, running-wise, their quarterback Jason Bean, 2 running backs, DeAndre Torrey and Oscar Idaway the third. They combined for 38 carries, 268 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And North Texas gets the win 27-17. UTSA at Southern Mississippi. This was a defensive battle in the first half. It was 10-9 in favor of Southern Mississippi. What really hurt Southern Miss in this game was the early parts of the second half. UTSA, they went down on the opening drive. They scored. Then Southern Miss threw an interception. UTSA capitalized on that interception. They scored. Then Southern Miss had a punt, and just like that, UTSA was up 23-10, and it got away from Southern Miss. Southern Miss did their best to recover. It just wasn't enough. Quick mention, Jack Abraham transferred earlier in the week. So it was up to Tate Watley, who went 22 for 39, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. So certainly not a bad, horrific day for him. He played as well as he could, I think, in that situation. And I think they should have leaned on Frank Gore Jr. a little bit more in the run game. When they did have him carry the ball, only 13 times, he ran for 70 yards. So I think that could have been a better deal for them. And UTSA is starting to realize what wins them games, and that's handing the ball to Sincere McCormick, as he had 32 carries for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. And UTSA gets the win 23-20. Next game was the big game, number 7 Cincinnati at UCF. UCF had Cincinnati in this. They had a 14-3 lead. Cincinnati wasn't looking great. On multiple punts, they muffed. It was just not looking good for Cincinnati. But Cincinnati stayed with it. I said they needed to get the run game going. It was important, so Dylan Gabriel wasn't on the field a lot. And they did. They controlled the time of possession. They won that battle 37 minutes and 8 seconds to UCF's 22 minutes and 52 seconds. Cincinnati's got to start watching these penalties. They had 11 for 86 yards. They got to start watching those. If they got a slim shot of getting into the playoffs, they need to do everything perfect. Dylan Gabriel went 26 for 49, only 243 yards. That's only about 5 yards a pass, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He also had 11 carries for 30 yards. And Desmond Ridder flat out outplayed Dylan Gabriel. Flat out outplayed him. He went 21 for 32, 338 yards. That's good enough for a 10.6 average. And he had 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He also had 14 carries for 57 yards and another 2 touchdowns. Definitely outplayed UCF's quarterback, Dylan Gabriel. Darian Beavers, a defensive lineman for Cincinnati. He also was in the face of UCF's offensive lot. He had 12 total tackles, 1.5 sacks, and 4 tackles for loss. Quick note for Cincinnati here. You have a very slim chance of getting into the playoffs. So any slight thing you could mess up on and could alter your season, like even just 1 loss, it will cripple any chance you have. And late in the game, instead of just scoring to really finish the game and go up by 10 points and then just flat out end it, the running back stopped on the goal line. They wanted to kill the clock, and something almost disastrous happened. And they lined up in shotgun for the last play on 4th down, and it was a bad snap, and it was a fumble, and Desmond Ridder was able to dive on it. Turns out there was 1 second left on the clock when he hit the ground. So they gave UCF one more chance. UCF tried to lateral it. It didn't work. But geez, guys, have the killer instinct. Score the touchdown and end the game. Because there'd be no chance at that point UCF scores 10 points in that amount of time. There's no way. There was literally 1 second left when he recovered the ball. There was no way. Just score and be done with it. So that's just my take on it. The announcer said that was the right football move. I don't think it was. That was almost really bad for Cincinnati. Just imagine if UCF scooped and scored, or they were able to lateral it and something crazy happened here in 2020 and UCF won that game. Every chance of the playoffs is gone. The slim chances you have already. And Cincinnati got the win 36-33. Next game is Middle Tennessee State at Troy. I don't know why this game made me feel really good for Middle Tennessee State. Just good on them getting their quarterback a win. Asher O'Hara has been playing and doing all he could for his team. They finally get him a win here. But Middle Tennessee State, they were getting off the field, either turnovers or forcing punts. MTSU finished the game with +2 in the turnover differential. They owned time of possession. They had the ball 37 minutes and 21 seconds. Asher O'Hara went 19 for 23, 210 yards, and he also had 25 carries for 86 yards. He didn't score, but he didn't turn the ball over. Chan Mobley and Frank Peasant really stepped up in this game. Combined, they had 19 carries for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns, and it got Middle Tennessee State the win, 20-17, as they beat Troy. Next game is San Diego State at Nevada. Good game as expected. Third down definitely hurt San Diego State a little bit. They went 2 for 11 there. I talked about San Diego State when last time they only rushed the ball for a little bit over 100 yards. They lost. Well, they only totaled 109 yards rushing this game, and the result was the same. San Diego State quarterback, they actually played Lucas Johnson, who went 14 of 24, 184 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. So he played really well. But you got Carson Strong on the other side. He went 31 for 46, 288 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And Romeo Dubes, who had 5 receptions for 133 yards and a touchdown. And Nevada wins 26-21. Next game is Georgia State at South Alabama. I can't believe Georgia State was able to recover from 4 turnovers in this game. The problem was South Alabama only capitalized on 1 of those turnovers. Georgia State had 556 yards total offense. I said it was important for Georgia State to get the run game going. They had 222 rush yards. South Alabama really just couldn't score. They had 324 yards of offense. They had the same amount of first downs as Georgia State. They just really couldn't capitalize on those turnovers and score. South Alabama running backs Jared Wilson and Carlos Davis combined for 15 carries, 87 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Probably should have leaned on them a little bit more to kill some more clock, control the game a little bit more maybe. And like I said, Georgia State's rush offense, they had 44 carries for 222 yards, 5 yards per carry, and 4 touchdowns. And Georgia State gets the win 31-14. Last game of the week is Boise State at Hawaii. At the half, Boise State was up 19-3, but good job of Hawaii staying in there. They hung in there, and they eventually stormed back in the second half, but they just fell short. Hawaii quarterback Siobhan Cordero went 25 for 48, 253 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 18 carries for 90 yards. Boise State running back Andrew Van Buren had 27 carries for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Boise State wide receiver Khalil Shakir had 11 receptions for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Boise State got the win 40-32 to finish up week 12. Good week, really good games, surprising games. Middle Tennessee State, I'm happy for them. They've had a tough time and they finally got a pretty good win against Troy. Like the video, subscribe, share with your friends, and see you on the next video.